because they scored one touchdown in a playoff game at Arrowhead, and they had one of the worst special teams performances in modern NFL history. Yeah. That's why they lost, because their vaunted defensive line got 3 sacks while the Chiefs' defensive line got 8. All the whining. And Will Anderson saying, oh yeah, we knew going into the game it was going to be up against the refs. Then don't have the first time you hit the quarterback, you hit him in the neck. And if you know it's going to be you against the refs, maybe aim for the chest. So everyone can keep their complaining. There was one awful call in the NFL playoffs, game-changing call. The DPI against Baltimore at the end of the first half.
Yeah.
Nobody cares, because nobody actually cares about bad officiating. They only care about trying to find a reason that the league, by the way, and I'm sorry I'm late, but you put me on this. This idea that it's rigged. Guys, you do understand the league is the 32 owners. So the 31 other owners are like, damn, I guess we're rigging it for Kansas City again. You don't think McNair in Houston is like, hey, guys, I don't want to rig it for the Chiefs. And they're like, shut up, doesn't matter. You know, so ridiculous. Thank you for bringing that up.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Okay, what's up guys? So that was Chiefs superfan Nick Wright on the herd blasting NFL fans of any talk about the league or the refs rigging games for his team. Now mind you, there are a ton of ways to think about this. On one hand, like Nick suggested, some might think this is a league-wide conspiracy involving all 32 teams, but it doesn't even have to be that complex for people to think that there's cheating involved. I mean, this could simply be the league telling the referees who are officiating games to be easier or tougher on certain teams. And I'm not saying this is what's going on in the NFL, but I want to discount it. Then there's also the new element of sports betting, which has become a multi-billion-dollar machine in recent years, and there's a ton of money being exchanged in the process. That said, there was an interesting report by Sharp Football Analysis done by Warren Sharp. Here's what his tweet said from 2 days ago. I saw a crazy stat yesterday on ESPN that I could not believe. The last 4 years, over the Chiefs' 11 playoff games, they had 0 games when Kansas City had more penalties than their opponents. 10 of those games, their opponents had more penalties, meaning only once in the Chiefs' last 11 playoff games did they have the same amount of penalties as their opponents, and then in the remaining 10 games, their opponents were penalized more. But here's where it really gets interesting. Warren actually dives deeper into the other playoff teams. And here he tweeted, when I compare the stats from ESPN on the Chiefs to those from the other teams in the NFL, the difference was interesting. Here's a look at every team with at least 5 playoff games and how they compare. Most are relatively neutral, then there are the Bengals and the Chiefs. So during this 11-game stretch, KC was 10-1 and had a net positive of 10 penalties versus their opponents. The next team was Baltimore and Los Angeles with a +1. So some of you might not think that these stats are really crazy, but I think it does show a little inherent bias NFL refs may have towards Mahomes and the Chiefs, or they've been instructed to officiate these games a little differently. One of the benefits the league has right now is that they have a ton of new fans come and watch games, especially the ones that feature the Chiefs because of Taylor Swift and the effect she has on her own fans. I mean, you could see this with the Kelsey Brothers podcast, New Heights. They had a significant uptick in female listeners after he and Taylor hooked up, and then that translated into a huge 3-year, $100 million licensing deal that their podcast signed with Wondery. Anyways, the next tweet, Warren discovered something even more interesting in the last 4 postseasons. In those 11 games, the Chiefs' opponents were called for roughing the passer 7 times to the Chiefs' 1. On top of that, 4 unnecessary roughness on opponents to KC's 1, and 11 DPIs or defensive holdings on opponents to KC's 2. I mean, these numbers are ridiculous. These are huge penalties because they're mostly 15-yard penalties are spotted at the foul, aside from the defensive holding, but they're all first downs, meaning they are game-changing penalties, and you could probably think about how many penalties these affected the outcomes of a Chiefs playoff game. Albeit, this is still a very small sample size, which Warren addresses in his next tweet, and he does note that the same degree of favoritism from the refs was not evident in the regular season game since 2021. Nonetheless, this is still interesting data to just see how much Kansas City has benefited from the referees. So I guess you can come to your own conclusions if you think the league or the refs are helping Mahomes and the Chiefs.